The year is 1863. The United States is tearing itself apart in the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln is president. The light bulb hasn't been invented yet. And on Market Street in Philadelphia, a small shop opens its doors to sell sugar and spices. Fast forward 161 years. This shop survived the Civil War. It survived the Great Depression. It survived 2 world wars. It survived the Spanish flu and the COVID pandemic. And most impressively, it survived the invention of the Hershey bar. In a world where everything is mass-produced, automated, and cheap, Shane Confectionery is the oldest continuously operating candy store in America. And they didn't survive by changing. They survived by refusing to change a single thing. This is the story of the shop that beat the modern world. But to understand the victory, we first have to understand the war. To understand why this place matters, you have to understand what candy used to be. In the mid-1800s, Philadelphia wasn't just a city, it was the sugar capital of America. Ships sailed up the Delaware River loaded with raw sugar cane and cocoa beans from the Caribbean. But the tradition goes back even further. Before the shop was even built, this neighborhood was home to Christopher Ludwig, a German immigrant who became the Baker General for George Washington's army. He baked gingerbread for the troops during the Revolutionary War. Shane Confectionery isn't just a store, it is the spiritual successor to that revolutionary spirit. In 1863, a man named Samuel Herring opened a wholesale sugar shop at 110 Market Street. His son, Benjamin, didn't just sell candy, he fought for the Union Army. But while Benjamin was on the front lines, the shop was fighting its own battle. The Civil War disrupted everything. Supply chains shattered. The price of sugar skyrocketed as tariffs were raised to fund the war effort. For a confectioner, this was a death sentence. Most shops closed. But the Herrings innovated. They leaned into efficiency and a specific German tradition: clear toy candy. You take molten sugar, dye it red or green, and pour it into elaborate cast iron molds. Lions, trains, ships. In the 1800s, this wasn't just candy. For a poor child at Christmas, a sugar lion was often the only toy they received. It was something beautiful that you could hold, admire, and then eat. By focusing on these high-margin, durable treats, they survived the shortage. When Benjamin returned from the war in 1865, he traded his rifle for a copper kettle. The shop you see today is a time capsule, but not of 1863. It's a time capsule of 1911. That was the year a new owner, Edward Shane, bought the building and decided to modernize it. But he didn't just renovate it, he weaponized the architecture. Look closely at the windows. They aren't flat, they are curved. This wasn't an aesthetic choice, it was a technological one. In 1911, electric streetlights were harsh and created massive glare on flat windows. Pedestrians couldn't see inside. So, Shane installed patented curved glass that eliminated reflections. It made the glass invisible. Passers-by would feel like they could reach right in and grab a chocolate. It was the 1911 equivalent of a 4K Retina display. And the timing was perfect. America was heading toward prohibition. The temperance movement was attacking alcohol, and strangely, they promoted candy as the moral alternative. If you weren't drinking whiskey, you should be drinking soda and eating chocolate. Shane Confectionery positioned itself as a place of wholesome vice. They learned a lesson that would save them again and again. In times of crisis, people don't stop eating candy, they eat more of it. But why keep using the old tools? Is it just nostalgia? No, it's science. Most modern candy factories use stainless steel vats. They are cheap, durable, and easy to clean. But stainless steel is a terrible conductor of heat. It creates hot spots that scorch the sugar. Copper is different. Copper conducts heat 20 times better than stainless steel. When you cook sugar in a copper kettle, the heat spreads instantly and evenly across the entire surface. This allows the candy maker to control the temperature within a fraction of a degree. And in candy making, 1 degree is the difference between a perfect caramel and a burnt mess. And then there is the chemistry of chocolate. It's called tempering. Cocoa butter is a polymorph. It can crystallize in 6 different forms. Only one form, beta 5, is stable. It gives chocolate that glossy shine and that satisfying snap when you break it. If you miss beta 5 by 2 degrees, the chocolate blooms. It gets chalky. It melts in your hand instantly. Big factories use massive cooling tunnels and chemical emulsifiers to force the chocolate to stabilize. Shane uses a marble slab and a spatula. The marble pulls the heat out of the chocolate at a specific rate, while the candy maker agitates the molecules by hand. It is a wrestling match with chemistry. It is slower. It is harder. But the result is a crystal structure that no machine can perfectly replicate. But science doesn't always win. In the early 20th century, a new force emerged in Pennsylvania. Milton Hershey, Mars, the industrialists. They realized that if you built a machine to do the work of 50 men, you could sell a chocolate bar for a nickel and still become a billionaire. It wasn't just fair competition, it was economic warfare. In the late 1800s, the Sugar Trust, a massive conglomerate, used predatory pricing to drive small refiners out of business. They would drop prices below cost until the little guys went bankrupt, then jack the prices back up. Efficiency became the god of American business. Why spend 20 minutes hand-tempering chocolate on a marble slab when a factory can do a ton in an hour? Why use fresh, local butter when preservatives last longer on a shelf? And then came the ingredient shift. In the 1920s and 30s, big candy makers switched to high-fructose corn syrup and compound chocolate, replacing expensive cocoa butter with cheap vegetable oils. It was cheaper, it was sweeter, and it killed the nuance of real sugar. American palates were trained to crave the cheap stuff. But the real cost wasn't just taste, it was human. The industrial chocolate boom was fueled by unethical labor practices in West Africa. The big chocolate price model relies on poverty at the source. Shane Confectionery decided to fight a different war. They became one of the few shops in America to go bean to bar. They source raw cacao beans directly from farmers they know. They pay a premium. They proved you can be small and moral in a world that is big and ruthless. One by one, the local candy shops died. They couldn't compete on price. They couldn't compete on volume. The mom and pop shop became a relic. By the late 90s and early 2000s, Shane Confectionery was a ghost. The neighborhood around it had collapsed. The family, now in its 3rd generation with Barry Shane, was tired. The machines were breaking down. The roof was leaking. The business was losing money. And when a candy store dies, it doesn't just get dusty, it ferments. Sugar is organic. When water leaks into a building coated in a century of sugar dust, it begins to rot. The walls were sticky. The floorboards were spongy. It was the chemistry of decay. By 2010, America's oldest candy store was weeks away from becoming a Starbucks. Enter the Burley brothers, Eric and Ryan, 2 brothers who loved history more than money. They weren't typical businessmen. They were antique hunters. A few years earlier, they had opened the Franklin Fountain down the street, an authentic 1904 soda fountain. When they heard Shane's was closing, they didn't see a failing business. They saw a masterpiece. They didn't just want to buy the building, they wanted to buy the tradition. But when they walked inside, they realized the scale of the problem. It wasn't just a fixer-upper, it was a time capsule that was rotting from the inside out. Most investors would have gutted it. The Burleys did the opposite. They spent 18 months scrubbing 80 years of sugar and soot off the walls. During the renovation, they peeled back a panel on the wall and uncovered something incredible. A ghost sign from 1907, hand-painted lettering reading "Wholesale Retail." It had been hidden for a century. It was a message from the past, reminding them what this building was built to do. They also restored the heartbeat of the shop, the roasting room. In the back of the store, they process raw cacao. When they roast a batch, the smell drifts out onto Market Street, a heavy, rich scent of brownies and earth. It stops pedestrians in their tracks. It is a smell that hasn't existed in American cities for 50 years. And then, they found the treasure. Tucked away in drawers and old boxes, they found the recipes, not on a hard drive, on the backs of envelopes, scraps of paper from 1920, the original formula for the Shane buttercream, the exact temperature for the caramels. The code to the safe wasn't money, it was knowledge. Today, if you walk into 110 Market Street, you aren't just buying candy, you are watching a performance. See that machine? That is a buttercream beater from the 1920s. It is loud, it is slow, and it whips butter and sugar into a texture that no modern machine can replicate. See those molds? They are using the same cast iron molds from the 1800s to make clear toy candy. It takes hours to set. It breaks easily. It is incredibly inefficient. And that is the point. But they didn't just look backward. They looked up. On the roof of the building, the Burley brothers installed beehives. Why? Because in 1863, there was no corn syrup. There was honey. Today, thousands of bees fly over the Philadelphia skyline, collecting nectar from the city flowers to make the honey that goes into the nougat downstairs. It is literally the taste of Philadelphia. Shane Confectionery survived the Civil War. It survived the Great Depression. It survived the invention of the internet. We live in a disposable culture. If a phone breaks, we buy a new one. If a building gets old, we tear it down. We are obsessed with the new. But the Burley brothers proved that new isn't always better. Sometimes the old way is the only way. Look at the staff. They wear crisp white coats and bow ties. This isn't a costume, it's a uniform. In 1910, being a candy clerk was a profession. It was about hygiene, precision, and service. They are keeping that dignity alive. In a world that is constantly racing to be faster, cheaper, and newer, this little shop on Market Street proved that sometimes the smartest move is to stand still. They didn't beat Hershey by becoming Hershey. They won by being the one thing a giant corporation can never be: authentic. If you believe that local businesses are the heartbeat of this country, you're in the right place. We tell the stories of the shops, the factories, and the people who refuse to fade away. Subscribe to Built Local, because the next story, it's even crazier than this one.